Do not drink the tap water in Thailand. If you're a tourist and you interact even slightly in the water, chances are you're going to get poisoned. Welcome back to my channel, guys, where I do another episode of water quality hunt by country. I am Nivet and I like to travel the world and find water facts one country at a time. And this one is about the water in Thailand. I specifically enjoyed making this video because nobody drinks the tap water here, and there are a lot of certain issues and specifications and details to look out for when in Thailand. So enjoy this video as I will be covering the problems, the water sources, solutions, and how you can avoid being poisoned here in Thailand. So I do want to start this video by mentioning that Thailand has strict rules when it comes to water treatment. So the water municipality actually treats the water according to WHO standards. So it's good. But the problem here is that the trajectory that it goes until it gets to your place might have a lot of problems there. And two, you never know what kind of water source you're getting, because maybe the hotel or the apartment wherever you're staying is actually pumping groundwater and giving it to you, and that water might not be even standardized. This brings me to a question: what are all the sources of the water that can be found in Thailand?
So let's dive right in and explore all 4 sources of Thailand's water. 2 of them are a little more common, but the other 2 are actually new technology that I was very happy to find out that Thailand is investing in such new ways of collecting water. So the number 1 source of water in Thailand is surface water, basically water that could be found anywhere on the surface. That's lakes, rivers, reservoirs, and so on. So the problem with this water is that it's very, very contaminated since it's wild in the open environment. So things you can see around the river, for example, might be trees, aquatic life, animal life, soil, dust, and so on and so forth. And these are only the contaminants that we can actually see. What about the ones that we do not see, like dissolved metals and heavy metals or pharmaceutical chemicals? So this is actually making the water a lot more contaminated. While it's true that this water needs to go to a treatment facility plant where water is being treated and then coming all the way to your home, but that's one thing to consider. So one level of difficulty to obtain that water is easy since it's outside in the environment, but 2, difficulty is a little bit difficult to clean it out since there are many, many contaminants that can be found in the water. Water source number 2 would be groundwater. That's basically water that has seeped into the ground. So any water that was on the surface basically made its way through the soils and rocks down to the aquifers where the water is stored. It's basically like rocks that are combined and the water just stays there. Whenever that water stays there, people just dig a hole and they get that water out, pump it out for consumption. So this is another very common practice that is used in Thailand and actually all over the world. But the problem with this groundwater is that it's not regulated. Whenever you're getting water from your tap, you know that the water municipality has actually gone through a treatment process and that water has met some sort of standards. But when it's groundwater, there are no regulations, so you don't really know what's going in your water, which is why it makes it very, very important for you to get that water tested before you actually decide what type of filter you want to put or even consume it in any form. So the level of difficulty for this, I would give it an orange since it has to be pumped back up, and the level of filtration, I would also give it an orange. Of course, a lot of the things depend on the water test itself. It depends on the rocks and soils that the water has seeped through, because if it has minerals or other things, the water is just going to absorb those. So it really depends on the water that you're getting. Moving on to source number 3, the desalinated water. Basically taking seawater, salty water, filtering it and making it tap water. This is a very new, interesting technology that is just saving lives for especially water-stressed areas. Like Thailand has some islands like Koh Phangan or Koh Samui where they don't really have a lot of water available for them and they just have a lot of ocean. UAE is actually leading technology in this, and I covered a full-on episode of how the water is being get in UAE. You can find it here above. I really believe that this type of technology is going to be more and more popular as we're consuming a lot more water than we have, especially in water-stressed areas like Koh Samui or Koh Phangan, where it's like small islands with not access to fresh water. So people have to have some sort of water, right? So these are the technologies that they're going for. But there's a big problem with this. These desalination plants actually require a lot of energy, a lot of money to be able to be ran. So this gives it a level of filtration of extra red and level of difficulty. I guess orange, but could also go for red. And finally, we get to source number 4, which is rainwater harvesting. So simple, yet so genius. Basically, we're getting rain, which is water, right? Why not collect it and keep it and reuse that? Mainly people are using this for household or agricultural uses. So basically we can think of this as the cleanest source of water, because whenever water is being evaporated, that's basically a natural way of distilling water and making it H2O and going back up into the skies. But whenever it's coming back down, if the air is polluted, if there's something dirty around, that is one problem that we need to keep in mind that might have the water in. And number 2 is the storage tanks. As I mentioned earlier, these storage tanks are actually a big place for bacteria development to start if not maintained properly. These reservoirs for rainwater, basically they need to have a big surface area so that they can collect more water possible. Whenever these are big areas, there are a lot of areas, again, that is out in the environment, and a lot of sources of contaminations that can come and just crawl back down into the waters. So for the sake of this video, let's assume that the water is being harvested in a very safe area where there's not a lot of air pollution, and that gives it a level of difficulty of red, because you have to build all this infrastructure to harvest the water. But the level of frustration goes for green, because it's basically purest water and no air pollution, so that just leaves a little bit of like debris or animal leftovers, which is easy to actually filter out. So let's go back to our initial question. What is in this water tank? Is it tap water? Is it surface water? Is it groundwater? What type of water is actually in this one? Well, actually, it could be literally anything. It could be a mix of things, and it could be anything. Because now that we know all the sources and we understand that it's scarce, and we don't really necessarily need to clean water to drinking standard to be using that, I don't know, to flush the toilet, which is why actually some people have created a very smart infrastructure of piping where they're using salt water, literal seawater, to flush down their toilets, since they don't really need, drinking water to, you know, flush down their proteins. And this should cover all sorts of water that you can find in Thailand and the problems of them, but that's only the tip of the iceberg, because each contaminant has actually a different problem and affects the body differently.
Now that we understood that the treatment plants is going to, according to WHO, and the water sources, now how is it making its way through to your home? What are these pipes that are being using? So for example, if it's lead, it's not good. But I know, for example, in Phuket, they're using PVC pipes, which is plastic, which is considered a little bit more safe than lead. So yes, everybody knows it here. Do not drink the tap water. But that brings me to a question. What happens if we actually drink the tap water? Will we die?
And now we're going to be covering of how each contaminant that's found in the water will affect your body. And I'll be breaking them into 2 parts. One is immediate effect, and 2, long-term exposure. So the number one thing you should be worried about your water is if there's pathogens, that's viruses or bacteria in your water. And it's pretty common to have that in Thailand, since a lot of the water is being stored in a water tank before it's coming for consumption. These water tanks are a good place for bacteria development to start, because the water is not even in constant flow and it's in heat, humid environment constantly. This can cause a lot of problems. What happens if you drink water with bacteria? Well, your stomach might not thank you for it. You'll have some diarrhea, you'll have some vomiting, so a little bit maybe fever. These are very common symptoms for people who recently arrived to Phuket, so you do need some time to adjust your area. Moving on to contaminants that have a long-term effect on your body. So these are the things that you might be drinking them and you will not immediately feel an effect on your body, but if you're drinking it constantly day in, day out, then you have high risks of developing the sort of chronic illnesses. So for example, one thing I found that is found in the water here in Thailand is high levels of arsenic. Some areas, not all, don't worry. Whenever you have arsenic in the water, then this is actually a very dangerous heavy metal if you're drinking it long term. Arsenic can be found in areas where there's high mining, for example, and that could cause cancer, some damages of organs, and skin lesions. These are the things that I found, and I'll be linking the links down below. So number 2 would be microplastics, and these are things that are common basically everywhere. Even when I was swimming on the beach, on the shore, I would find like little tiny pieces of plastic along the shore, which was very, very sad to see. And if we're consuming this and drinking it every day, it causes inflammation and even some disruption of hormones. So please be careful about this microplastics and don't just ignore them. Moving on to number 3, it's nitrates that are found in the water, and this comes from farming activities. It's basically like the leftovers and feces of animals. If this is found in the water, it could be very, very dangerous, especially for little kids. Studies found that high levels of nitrates can increase the risk of stomach cancer, increase the risk of oxygen deprivation in infants, and cardiovascular strains. And last but not least, we have PFAS in the water as a big risk. I covered a full-on episode of how it is and what it can do to your body. I'll link it here above. But really, this is something that is not even standardized or monitored here in Thailand. And I was very surprised to hear that, because PFAS you can find basically everywhere. Everything that is waterproof, it has that PFAS chemical in it. And well, this area, Thailand or South Asia, a lot of this manufacturing is actually going on around here. So I would assume that they would have high concentrations of PFAS. But I also found out that this is not being monitored by local government or authorities. So I was wondering if I could, get it tested and see if there are some PFAS residue in the water in Thailand. What do you think? So with all that being said, how are locals actually being able to, work with this sort of water? Well, it's true that they're not drinking it, but they are using it one way or the other, right? So the conscious ones are actually boiling the water before consumption, because that would kill the viruses and bacteria in the water. But what about all the rest of the things? I mean, boiling only kills that pathogens, but there are many other things. How are they surviving? Or are they just not living as healthy as they could? Well, in reality, your body kind of like adapts to things. If you're born in Thailand and you've constantly been in touch with this sort of water, then chances are that you already are immune to these things. But us as tourists and expats, we're coming here, we're not used to this environment, we're not used to this water. And the smallest contact with this water can actually cause some problems down the line. It could be as simple as brushing your teeth with the regular tap water, or washing your vegetables and fruits. So really, the smallest thing, we need to be careful of how we're doing it. All of that implies for the immediate effects, but what about the long-term exposure? Honestly, for the long-term exposure, we're all on the same boat here. There is no one who can build immunity, I don't know, for example, for PFAS. While it's true that this is a new word that has come to the attention of people, and that's why we need to talk about it a lot more, raise awareness about it, because we need to really normalize to have these sort of like filtration systems or rely on them, because they are the ones that they will save us from PFAS, for example. And it's called the forever chemical for a reason, because it just doesn't degrade, it doesn't break down, The only filter that effectively removes PFAS from the water is a reverse osmosis unit. So if you can't afford one, I would highly suggest purchasing one. I can list a few here and you can see which one suits your budget and your needs best. So let's go back to our initial question. Will you die if you drink the tap water in Thailand? And well, let's start with the day number 1 and 2. Number 1 and 2, you're going to feel a little bit bloated. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Your gut and your stomach are not like really ready for these new types of bacteria in the water, but that's as far as it could go. Day number 3 and 4, as a matter of fact, then your digestion is going to be starting to like being all, going to the bathroom back and forth. You're gonna have cramps, you're gonna have all this like bad stuff, vomiting and bacteria. So that's something that, moving on to day number 3 to 5, these days you're actually going to have a lot more serious problems, such as diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, all these like bad things, because your gut, your stomach are just like, whoa, what's happening? Like, all these things are happening. You do want to be careful with this already. You're like throwing out everything that you're eating, and that is causing you to lose a lot of electrolytes and be more dehydrated, especially in areas like this where it's very warm. You do want to be looking out for that. If you're going through such a thing, I'm very sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry for your stomach, but you do have to run to the pharmacy and get electrolyte packets, because you're losing all the minerals from your body, and you do want to look out for that. And don't just go for any sort of electrolytes. Do go for ones that are approved and in line with WHO standards, because well, not everyone has the exact amount of electrolytes that your body needs, especially in conditions like this. And finally, moving on to, let's say, the last days of the week, so from day 5 to 7, these days are already, you're going to start having this compounding effect, and your stomach is not going to be liking it at all. So in these stages, you'll have risks of dehydration rises, you'll have stomach lining irritation, could cause more severe cramps. In some unlucky cases, prolonged exposure leads to parasite infection like Giardia. These can last weeks if untreated. nutrient absorption drops, so you might feel weaker and lose energy for sightseeing. So to simplify things, no, you will not die if you drink tap water in Thailand, but should you drink it? Absolutely not, because it will cause slow damages and chronic gut issues. That's something that you do not want. Even locals are not drinking from the tap water, and their bodies are immune to it and they're ready for it, you know? What are they drinking? Actually, there are these things like these sort of dispensers around here, and when I first saw it, I was like, what is this? Like, this looks so sketchy. I would prefer just drinking from the tap, because this does not look like a filter. Like, this is not something that I can rely on. So I did do a little investigation of how to choose which one. There are different brands. Can you actually trust them? And testing some of them.
These types of dispensers are basically water dispensers. People come here, they fill in their bottles, and they take it back home for consumption. Now, I've seen a lot of you guys posting stories and saying, oh, look, 1 liter per 1 baht. This is really good. This is drinking water. But it doesn't really work like that, and it gets a little bit more complicated. So in this video, I'm going to be covering if you should trust these water dispensers, which ones are the good ones, and how to test them. So let's go. Just to make things more simple, I'm going to make like a comparison. Imagine when you're going to buy a car. First, you look at the brand, you look at the efficiency, you look at the model, you look at safety. So all the things that you do take into consideration. The same applies for water. Why are you being so picky with your car? Well, water is one of the most important and basic needs for your body. So let's assume that we're starting with a brand. Let's say that you chose Mercedes. Now, I know that there are a few brands for these water dispensers around, and I didn't really go into each brand and which one's the good ones, because some of them really keep up with their maintenance, others not so much. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't do a full-on deep dive about the brands, but what I did do is I asked ChatGPT, and this is what it told me. Here's a simple breakdown of the table. All right, now let's assume that you went with a Mercedes, but which model are you going to go for? You need to know according to your needs, right? Maybe you need an SUV because you're going to go to off-road or like real difficult places, or you just need a small car like a hatchback or something else. So this is where you're choosing the model. The same is with filters. Now we need to choose the model of the filters, because each filter is actually different. So for example, what you want to be looking out for specifically for these dispensers, or actually any sort of water that is in Thailand, is reverse osmosis water. So if this dispenser is an RO water, therefore this is something that is already a good indicator. How to know if it's an RO water? We're going to be covering that a little bit later by testing the water itself. The good thing about reverse osmosis system is that it effectively removes everything from your water. Good minerals, pathogens, dust, bacteria, heavy metals, everything from your water. But other filters, for example, 2-stage, 3-stage filter, it's a combination basically. So if you combine, for example, a filter that removes dust and big particles with chlorine removal, well, this is only going to remove these two, but it won't remove the rest, like pathogens, heavy metals, or pharmaceutical residue. Or you might have a filter that will effectively remove the big particles and bacteria, but not the chlorine and heavy metals. So really, this is something that you do want to pick out very carefully, depending on the problem of the water source itself. Now, I did cover a video about the water sources and the problems of each source in my previous videos. I'll link them here above. So if you've been here a while, you already know that I'm a big fan of reverse osmosis systems. While I know it's not very environmentally sustainable, as it throws away some of the water and it's very expensive to maintain, but it does not change the fact that it effectively removes everything from your water, and it basically gives you the safest water out there. Now, according to my research, a lot of these dispensers claim that it's a multi-stage filtration method, but what the word that you do want to be looking out for is reverse osmosis, so RO water, and it's ideal if it's combined with a UV system with it, because this water is being stored in the water tank and then coming to you for consumption. So this is just another layer of protection for your water. Now, even if you're seeing an RO system, the quality is still very, just like with a car. For example, if you're buying a Mercedes hatchback, let's say, each model might have different horsepowers. Some are higher than the other. The rest is with the filters. Some are just more efficient than others. Still following? Good. Now, before jumping into how evaluating and how to take it on test drive, I do want to mention a few pros and cons. So let's go. So some of the pros are: 1, it's extremely cheap, 1 baht per 1 liter, which makes it very, very affordable. 2, it's eco-friendly because you're buying less plastic, you're just refilling the same bottles. And 3, it's widely available in most cities, most towns, on the streets, some commercial areas, or even some buildings. Now, moving on to some risks. Number 1 would be maintenance. It's not like you install it once and you're good for life. Just like a car needs regular oil checkups, the same as with filters. Unexpected things can happen, and usually these filters need a checkup every 6 months. Number 2 is water tanks. Now, as I mentioned, the water is being filtered, stored in a tank, and then consumed. So when the water is being stored in a tank and the water is not in flow, it's not moving, it's in a humid environment, and especially if there's direct sunlight on this water, then bacterial development might start. And this is why UV filter is very important at the end, just in case there are some pathogens left in the water. And number 3 is transportation. This is one thing that I really had a problem with. For example, I do not have any transportation methods. I don't have a car or a motorbike around here. So it was very hard for me to every time take these big bottles, walk to the dispenser, take it and bring it back home. Very heavy weight. So this transportation was kind of causing me a lot of back and forth and a lot of issues, which was not very, very pleasant. And now moving on how to choose the right dispenser. So number 1, you can just ask a local. Ask them which dispenser they are specifically drinking from, because chances are they've already tested a few in the area and they already know which one is the good one and which are not. Another important thing you want to look out for is if these machines actually look clean. Now, don't look at the stickers from the outside that, you know, the letters have been smudged from the UV or the water. What you do want to look out for is the area where the water is coming out from. You do not want to have any algae, any green things, black dots, or, you know, slimy material. This means that, you know, it hasn't been maintained properly. Some of the dispensers have maintenance stickers on them, and they write every time that they do the maintenance. So if the maintenance checks has been done, so it just writes either the date or like a check mark. This is another important indicator that, you know, this dispenser is actually safe to use. But now another trick that I do look out for is the drain pipe. The way that this technology works is basically the water that is clean is coming out of the tap, and then the other water that is not clean is being thrown away. So this is called the drain pipe. It has a separate pipe that is being put out to throw away the water that is basically not being used. And these pipes, usually I've noticed that they're going into sewage systems, and that's really not a good idea. Why? Because whenever it's going to sewage systems, like, think about it. The water is being thrown away, but if there are bacteria around the sewage system, well, bacteria is just going to come back inside. Any animals can just come back inside into the water filter system. So did you think about that? And finally, let's assume that the dispenser actually has the last layer of UV protection to kill any remaining bacteria that's in the water before consumption. In hotter months, these UV lights actually might just break and pop. Therefore, it just makes it useless. So one thing that I do, I always carry with me a water bottle that actually has a water filter in it. This has a UV in it, and it will kill any remaining bacteria that's left in the water. Or if you do not have such a water bottle, what you can do is just boil the water and it will kill any remaining bacteria. So what's exactly in these water dispensers you guys are all drinking from? Is it actually safe to consume? I actually convinced somebody to open it, so let's see what's inside. As we can see, this is a reverse osmosis system. Here it goes through 3 filtration stages. These are the membranes of the reverse osmosis system. That's the pump that's being able to pull the water from the groundwater. And I'm assuming this is the final cartridge just to give it a little taste that is after the tank. And we're arriving to the fun part. Now we're going to be testing the water. And with all these car examples, I have to make this joke. Let's take this baby on a test drive. Now, there are 2 things that I want you to keep in mind. Number 1 tester is a TDS meter, and the second one is for bacteria. Now, I know you guys are all doing these sort of tests. You're putting a TDS meter in the water and saying if the water is safe or not. That is absolutely wrong, because there's a lot more things in the water than just the TDS. TDS is basically the dissolved solids, that's minerals, salts, and so on. But there are other things like heavy metals, bacteria, chemicals that this meter is not being efficiently taking into account. But if it's an RO system, it's safe to assume that the TDS should be very, very low. You're looking for something below 50. And there's one more assumption to make, that this water is not being remineralized. Since these are tube systems, most likely they don't have remineralizing cartridges in them. Therefore, the TDS will not be high. But what you're looking for, like I said, is something 50. But if it's definitely over 100, do not drink from that water. That's definitely something that's not you want to put in your body, okay? Now that we tested the TDS and everything seems to be fine, we want to be looking out for number 2, which is pathogens and bacteria. As I mentioned, the water tank might have some bacteria in it, and there are ways to do it. Number 1, boiling the water. Number 2, having a water bottle. Or number 3, actually testing it. So we have these DIY tests. I have this one from Safe Home, which is from an American brand. Basically, you can do this very, very easily. You'll get the results within the 24 hours. It's very simple, very easy to do. I'll have the links below. You can check them out and have a mini discount. Now we're going to be testing the bacteria in the water. This is a DIY test, super easy, super simple. It's a Safe Home brand. So we're just going to put the water here and see the results. So in 24 hours, if this water has turned to green or blue, then this has bacteria in it. I found a water dispenser, and we're going to be testing the TDS of this water. Again, if it's a reverse osmosis system and it has high TDS, oh, this is not good. This is not a good. is not a good indicator. That means that the filters is not maintained and they need change ASAP. But wait, the water that we use is not only the water that we drink. We also shower with that water, we wash things with that water. So what are the things that this water quality is having an effect on other things other than drinking it? I will be navigating you through all of the steps and all the things that you need to be careful when it comes to the water in Thailand, because it doesn't just end by buying bottled water. Water is everywhere. It's not only about the tap water that's coming out of your kitchen faucet. It's the water that you shower with. It's the water that you do laundry with. It's the water you wash your vegetables and fruits with. So only buying bottled water and drinking from that is not going to cut it. And since the situation in Thailand is a little bit more complicated, and that's one thing I covered in the other video, which I will link above, I will walk you through all the steps that you need to take care of and how to know if the water is good or not. Tip number 1, bottled water. Do not fall for the label of drinking water, because drinking water might be different for each person. Do look for a filtration method. The thing that you're looking for is RO, reverse osmosis filtration. If it's combined with UV or if it's combined with ozone, even better. That's a really, really reliable bottling water that you can have. Another thing is spring water. Spring waters also have very high standards to be able to put that label on. So there's another thing that you can opt for. If you're going to like hotels and restaurants, they are going to have like just bottles that with their brand and it says drinking water. I'm not saying don't trust these, just please be sure to ask what type of filtration it's gone through. Look for any sort of certifications, maybe like an NSF certification or something that is on the bottle. Look for a label, something that kind of like shows you that this has been monitored and tested and standardized rather than just like drinking water. And number 2, water dispensers. Can you actually trust those? You're going to be seeing these a lot around Thailand. I did a full-on episode and deep dive of how to choose the ones, whether to trust it or not, and how to actually test the water. And I'm going to link it here above. But long story short, not all of them are the same. Not all of them have the same types of filtration, and not all of them are properly maintained. And if it's not properly maintained, then chances are the water is not going to be as good. So be careful and be mindful and watch this video. You'll thank me later. Number 3, always carry with you a water bottle that has a filter in it. Yes, so that's a thing. The water bottles can have filters. So for example, the one that I'm using a lot lately is this one by Luminor. Basically, it's a water filter that has a LED light in it, a UV, that kills effectively the bacteria that is found in the water. Well, I know that there's more things than just bacteria in the water. That's why I mentioned that I do make sure that the source of water is good. And then this just adds another layer of protection to the water that I'm already consuming. Other than this one, you do have a lot of other types of filters like gravity lead filters that I'm going to be linking also above. These are also effective, but again, you really want to know what is the water source, and depending on that, choose the filter that is best fit for you. So tip number 4, ice cubes. Yes, ice cubes. Let's not forget that ice cubes is basically frozen water. So is the water that they're using initially actually filtered water or not? So whenever you're looking, you do want to look out for 2 things. Number 1, the shape of the ice, if it's not crushed or it's not like a homemade tray. And number 2, if it's transparent. If it's transparent, that means that it's reverse osmosis ice. So you don't want it to look cloudy or, like it has some things in it. If it's completely transparent, that means most probably it's RO watered ice. And tip number 5, coffee. Coffee is mainly made of water. So you do want to have reverse osmosis water. Again, I cannot stress this enough. The best thing you can do is just ask for it or just like go have a look if there's a reverse osmosis system. This is what a reverse osmosis system looks like. Not a 3-stage one, not a 4-stage one. It has to be reverse osmosis system. Tip number 6, and this is actually an interesting one because I've been using this quite often. On the beach, whenever I'm on the beach and I don't want to buy plastic bottles or I can't find one bottle that I actually trust, I actually go for coconut water. Yes, you heard me. Coconut water. Coconut water actually has all sorts of really healthy electrolytes and minerals in it that your body needs. So especially on a beach day where it's warm, hot, you sweat a lot, and you lost a lot of electrolytes, it would be a good idea to go for coconut water, which will be refreshing and very, very delicious. And finally, tip number 7, if you're staying here for over a month, I would highly recommend you get a real filter. If your apartment or hotel is not already providing filtered water, then this might be something interesting that you can look into. Number 1 for drinking and number 2 for showering. So for drinking, again, I'm going to go for reverse osmosis system. Maybe you can negotiate with them and say like maybe you want to pay for half the price and they can pay for half of it, because anyways, you're going to be paying a lot for water if you're not going for the dispensers option. This way you'll have reliable water at all times with you. You won't have to worry about like buying water or getting it from somewhere, transporting it home, and so on and so forth. Plus, you'll be using a lot less plastic, which is good for you and the environment. And as for shower head filters, I actually ordered two on Lazada, which is a platform where they're buying stuff here. I got the cheapest one and one a little bit more expensive. So the cheap one is not something I would use. I just wanted to show you. It looks like this, and this basically only removes rust or some residue or sand or dust from the water. But really, this is not going to be making a big drastic change to your skin and hair if that's one thing you're worried about. As opposed to carbon filter, which is the one I'm actually using, this will remove chlorine from the water and some VOCs. Chlorine does have a drying effect on the body, so this will remove it. If you're also living in an area where the water is a little hard, then you might want to go for carbon plus resin options. Resin will reduce the hardness, therefore you will not have some mineral residue on your skin. So keep in mind that there are a lot of options, a lot of combinations for water filters. So you do want to be specific on what you want to get. There is a lot of options out there. You can check them in DIY stores or online. So if you want, I can do more of a deep down of the brands and which one to get and how to know which one is good for you. Because for example, for me, wherever I'm staying, I have soft water, therefore I don't need resin in my filter. And this is only carbon that's removing chlorine from the water. And finally, if you're living here and you bought an apartment, you do want to look for a full house filtration. If you have hard water, then get a water softener. A lot of places in Phuket have iron in the water, and iron leaves stains like this, which is not nice to see. And eventually the minerals and iron ruin the quality of your appliances at home, whether it's your washing machine or dishwasher or basically anything that the water could go through. So this is something you want to consider. This is a long-term investment, and why not have an extra layer of protection for your water and skin? And while it's true that I've been using this filter ever since I got here, but it does not change the fact that my skin is still dry and rusty and it feels not soft, let's say. So it's important to say that water is not going to be the only factor affecting your skin. It could be the sun, it could be the pool, or it could be ACs, the sea. A lot of things can affect your body. So a few things that I've been doing to keep my skin hydrated is, first of all, wearing sunscreen. Sunscreen is really important for the skin because the sun can really damage the skin. Number two, I've been using a lot of moisturizers, and not just your go-to basic moisturizer. Make it maybe serum based or very heavy creamed, maybe shea butter or something like this, or maybe even coconut oil. These sort of things really help me. And for the hair, also I've been using a lot of coconut oil. I've been doing hair masks just to keep my hair really soft. And another alternative that I found was natural and actually really helped a lot is aloe vera leaves. If you actually can find a natural one, that is even better. Just put that on the skin and it hydrates and it just gives that glowing effect. Another small tip that I want to add, since our bodies are not immune to this sort of water, I would highly recommend you being extra cautious with water. So anything in contact. For example, if you're brushing your teeth, then do consider brushing it with, clean water. If you're washing your fruits and vegetables, again, do consider washing it with the clean water. Or if you're taking a shower and you just want to your water, don't put that water in your mouth. Better not to do that and just have a normal regular water when you're just out of the shower. So some tips with electrolytes, what I do is, for example, when I'm eating watermelon, I put some salt in it, or I drink a lot of coconut water, or I go for, high mineralized food like nuts or orange or dairy products even. So just be sure to always hydrate, to always keep that electrolyte going on the flow, because it's hot weather, you're going to be sweating a lot, so you do want to stay hydrated at all times. So I want to conclude this video by saying that the tap water in Thailand is actually standardized according to WHO standards. So whenever the water is leaving the treatment plant, it's just really good. But whenever it's making that trajectory and getting all the way to your place and your faucet, then this is when the problems are happening, or they're going into water tanks. So this is where, a lot of things are getting a little like this and this. And that's a wrap, y'all. I want to conclude this video by saying that if you're curious about learning something new, please join me on my journey. I will be traveling the world and finding all sorts of water facts. So subscribe and join in on this journey.